Hey, everybody. Welcome back. This is Music Talk with Dave and Mike. I'm Dave.
Mike.
And today we're going to add a new topic to our list here. So we got a new format that we're doing since we still do our CD reviews, but we're also going to do different videos on different things. And this particular topic is going to be under the segment of tools of the trade. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the instruments, the beer it takes to play them, and how instruments are actually made somewhat. We're not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but there's a few things that could, help you out when you go to buy something, or what might make something sound better, things like that. But today we're going to talk about drums. And drums is such a wide spectrum, so I'm kind of going to just talk a little bit about shell packs, basically a shell of the drums and some snares maybe. We won't get too in depth with the snare thing because, snares alone is going to be a whole episode later. So right now I'm just want to talk about the drum shells themselves, and we have an expert here, Mike, with it. So he's been banging on drums since he was yay high.
And I didn't understand half of what I know for the first 25 years.
And I still don't understand it. So that's a good reason for us to talk about it. The one thing I was looking up is a lot of, there's all kinds of materials, obviously, but most of them seem to be made out of maple or birch. And then of course you can get some beech wood and cherry, really, if cherry's
Beech
probably a little rare, I would think, huh?
wood, cherry, walnut, mahogany. Now, over in the Far East, they had to quit doing the mahogany because they made it illegal cutting down the trees.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think most of your affordable ones are probably made out of what, birch, more than
Well,
likely.
I mean, you got a lot of cheaper woods. I mean, you got a lot of basswood, a lot of poplar wood, which
They-
your real entry level drums are made of. And then you step on up into like birch blended with basswood, which is what the Vision kit is.
yeah.
And then now Vision has gone straight up either birch or maple.
Hmm.
There's a difference in pricing, and it's just like with Yamaha and all the other drum companies. They have to import the maple over in China or Japan or Taiwan, wherever drums are being made, because the Asian maple does not have the same tonality as what the American maple has.
Right. Well, I found it interesting that back in 1927, Gretsch started making the multiply shells. So before they did the multiply, what were they making them out of? Just one piece of thick wood and bending it?
Well, that or they were doing stave drums. In other words, they were taking like 1 inch pieces of wood, contouring it to where when they put it together, it formed a whole shell.
I got you. Yeah. So in 27, Gretsch started doing the multiply. They started out with a 3-ply first, and then they moved up to a 6-ply in the 50s. And I think that's still what they're using now, a 6-ply.
They're using six and like a bass drum, and same with Pearl. Of course, with this version of the Pearl, the Visions, the tom toms up to a 14 were 6-ply.
Hmm.
Bass drum and the floor toms, 16 and 18, were all 8-ply.
Yeah, I saw where they were going. Like you could get anywhere from like a 6 to 9 at some points. You could get up to like a 9-ply. And then, of course, some drums, which I know my pearls don't have them, yours probably don't either. But some drums actually have a reinforcement ring.
And that's with the thinner shells.
Yeah.
That's shells. And the thing is, with a thin shell, a 3-ply shell, it's a lot more resonance.
Hmm.
You don't have the tuning capability because you can actually warp the shell,
Right.
tuning
Yeah.
them up.
And well, I found out too by some of the stuff because I was watching a lot of interviews and stuff with different drum people. I saw, the DWs, the Tamas, the Gretsch, Pearl, Ludwig, and Sonar, right? So I watched a bunch of specials and stuff on them. And they were saying that the thicker the drum, the higher the pitch.
Right.
And the thinner the drum, the lower the pitch, which I thought that was odd because it seemed like to me it would be reversed. But, again, I have no idea. So,
Well, the drum head, for example, you can take a snare head, hold it up, brand new out of the box, and hit it, and it has a pitch,
mhm,
really low. It's a really low pitch. But go pick up a plastic bucket lid
mhm.
and hold it here and tap it. Much higher pitch.
Right, right.
It's
Yeah, so I
thicker.
guess the resonance of it is what determines the thickness has more resonance, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of
And
odd.
why that's the reason why I like with the bass drums with the like with Pearl, for example, what I'm using is an 18 by 22 and it has a real low sonic pitch to it. And I used a set of Gretsch Catalina on the road for a while.
Mhm.
Love those drums. I mean,
Yeah,
they were awesome. Same thing with the bass drum. I mean, it was like a cannon going off. It was just so much resonance and bottom end happening. But when you go with the 14-inch shell, that's not happening that much anymore. So you're relying more on the resonant head to give you that bottom end
right.
versus that shell giving it to you.
Yeah, and that's a big thing that people don't realize is that bottom head is just as important as the top.
Yeah.
One thing too that I found out is that there was some companies they were using different types of veneer, and they found out that when they changed the direction of the grain made a difference in the pitch. So when you had them going like this, they were a little bit higher pitched, and when you had them going like this, they were lower. So they started playing with the plies and switching like one or two this way and figuring out what pitch would be better for what style. Like if you wanted jazz, you wanted a little higher pitch. You wanted, blues or rock, you wanted a lot lower. So they started switching that, which I thought was very interesting because I had no clue about that. So just by changing the grain of the plies makes a difference in the tone.
Hamlet's pretty open about explaining how they do their shells, and they do that. They their inner and outer plies, the grain is running around the drum,
Mhm.
but the plies in between, they are actually crossing those plies. They're doing things like this with
Right.
them. So you have a 6-ply drum. You got 4 plies that are doing this, and
Yeah.
2 plies that are doing just like this.
And it's pretty cool that just by changing that angle can make a pitch difference,
Yeah.
depending on what you're looking for in sound. That just kind of, I would have never thought of that before we started getting into this. So I thought that was really cool. Now, one
Thing,
thing I really want to talk to you about is bearing edges, because every drummer, not every drummer, but every drum manufacturer uses a different angle. Some of them won't even tell you what angle they use. So tell us a little bit about what a bearing edge is and
well,
what you do to make it.
if you want a vintage sound, like from the 50s, 60s, like what Ringo had on his drums, those were called round over edges. They there wasn't a sharp point.
Mhm.
And they came to realize here, I think about the late 70s or so, they started really messing with angles. Uh, and like with what I had done with these drums here, about 6 or 8 years ago, I took them over here to Rhythm Traders when I was living in Portland, Oregon, and I had them redo the bearing edges on the tom toms. I had a 30-degree outside with a
Okay.
40 inside.
Gotcha.
Point. But the reason why I did the 30-degree outside is I want the edge out closer to the edge of the shell. I
Right.
didn't want centered shell.
So do you have actual a point there, or is it rounded?
That's the point.
It's
It's,
just a point.
but you got to take care of, I mean, I make sure that I don't set it down on hard surfaces that'll chip that edge or whatever. Also, too, you take beeswax or whatever and treat the edge so
So
it slides over it.
so the less bearing on the head is what you're really looking for then?
Well, that gives you more of a clearer tone. The round over edge gives you a real fat tone, but it's not a lot of cut.
So with a thinner edge, would you get a better ring out
Yeah,
of your
more,
heads then?
more resonance.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You'll call shell to resonate too, which in turn, there again, you have to go. We're looking at how things are mounted. You know, like this is an Optimount here.
Right.
There's nothing that goes into the shell that's holding this. The only thing that's holding this mount are the lugs of the drums itself.
Right.
Are already things that are there
Yeah.
that you really can't do away with
Right.
unless you want to put a little floating. Yeah, and yeah, that's an ISIS mount.
Yeah. See, this one here, which, you've given me a couple of different mounts for the other ones back there. Those aren't the same. But once you told me about these, it's not as noticeable on the smaller toms, but it holds onto the rim. And as you hit the drum, it bends.
Yep.
So you can actually see the head being pulled when you're hitting the drum with this kind of mount. So for a bigger tom, and when you hit it, it's actually creating a it's not a real smooth sound. You can hear the pitch change as the drum vibrates. It's really weird. And I didn't notice it until you were telling me about it. And then you sent me those, and those sound a lot better. I still have one bigger tom over there with this, my 13-inch over there. And I think that's why it doesn't sound as good, is because it has this. Now, this one, you don't have much between the lugs, so it's not as bendable. But so yeah, I see what you're saying with the mount and how that makes a big difference. So now with the bearing edge, and what we were talking about here is, if you look closely in here, is this rim right here of the actual wood that contacts with the head. I think mine are a little rounded.
Well, what you've got, they shouldn't be too rounded. Yours should be like a double. I believe.
Actually, you're right. They're not rounded at all. They're actually just,
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything on the outside. It's all on the inside.
Think. Yeah, you're dealing with a 4560, I believe, is what you've got.
Could be. Yeah.
Or
It's hard to see, but yeah.
double 45, they just moved the centering over to the outer edge of the drum, where that outside part is barely 45. You know, you don't really have a whole lot there, but
So with the bearing edge closer to the outside of the drum, does it make a better resonance for the head ring
it gives more. It gives more.
of the tone?
There's more material laying inside the drum to
Okay.
resonate.
I got you. So yeah, because I wanted to ask you about bearing edge, because drum manufacturers are real picky about their edges, and they don't like to tell people about them. That's their like secret, right?
3045, because I had a set of Mapex M Pros that had the 4530, 30 on the outside, 45 on the inside, and
Yeah.
those drums tuned up so nice and so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, drop of a hat, I could retune my whole kit, and not worry about it.
Right.
And I remember back in the day, like with the older Ludwigs, like that, the older drums, my God. And the thing is too, you know, people didn't change heads the way they do today.
Right.
Change heads about like a guitar player would change guitar strings, you know.
Yeah.
Or hearing one get a little thuddy, well, then it's time for the whole set. You don't just change one string. You know?
Right. Right. Well, see, too, talking about heads is, I actually use the Evans EC2. It's got the edge control dampening ring, which I like because it keeps them from over ringing. You don't get that woo, woo. So I like these heads myself. I mean, I don't know what you use, but I just think the Evans heads, to me, they've always had a really good sound on every. And when I had an old Tama kit, they really sounded good on the Tama, and they sound really good on this one. Of course, this is all birch here, and it's got, you can see how the grain's going this way. So all my drums actually have the grain going this way on inside and out. I'm not sure about the middle, obviously, but so yeah, it's a 6-ply, all birch. I love them. They're great sounding drums. So, and I use the EC2 heads. Now, I don't know a lot about the inner workings of it. I just go bang on them and act like I know what I'm doing. So that's why I'm asking you about these. So,
Well, the whole thing is like it all depends on what you're looking for. Like right now, I've got Remo top and bottom. I've got the Emperor coated on the top.
mhm.
You
So
know,
yeah,
using the little Ambassador on the bottom,
yeah,
and it's more open sounding. But I do like the Evans EC2s. I've also used the G2s,
mhm.
which are like the Emperors.
Now, do those have any kind of like ring or dampener made into the coating, or
On the G2s,
no, the ones you got there?
oh, there's no dampening
That's
on
just
these.
straight up head with just the coating.
Wide open, and I use a wide open tuning. And the way to control the resonances is how you get the bottom head to react with the top head.
Hmm.
So you mess with it and you find a proper setting, which is what you and I were talking about earlier. When I find the sweet spot, I've got my drum dial now. So
Hmm.
when I change heads, all I got to do is look at my cheat sheet, put those heads on, and if they're Remos, I got to crack that glue joint.
Yeah,
If they're Evans, I don't have to do anything but put the head on
right,
and tune them up.
right. So
There,
I'm sure the heads actually start to stretch a little bit through time. So
well, you want a certain amount of stretch. You want some of that
yeah.
because what and it starts breaking in and it starts getting that fat sound.
Hmm.
You know? And when you start getting that fat sound, especially for live situations like you're playing clubs and stuff,
Yeah,
you want you want that head to be broke in. It's done with all the overtones, and what you're getting is the pure sound of the head and the shell
right, right.
with a lot of over rings and stuff like that. You know? So you can put your moon gel away.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I like about the EC2s is I don't have to put a lot of stuff on them there. I mean, they're pretty controlled. Um,
Fortunately, with the way I had Baronages done with these, I can passengers on the top of these Remos, and I get them tuned, and it's great. It's like wow, and
yeah,
I don't a lot of snare buzz like I used to back in the old days, which is weird. It's like I remember my 12-inch rack or 13-inch rack, I'd hit it and my snare would go crazy.
well,
I don't
maybe because of the way it mounts now.
have that situation anymore. It's weird.
Yeah, it could be because the mounts you're using have absorbed some of that.
Um, no, I mean you're not gonna. You, I don't know. Yeah, I mean I know it's a harmonic that causes that to happen, and when that snare is tuned into a close proximity, resonant wise, as with a 12 or a 13, yeah, it's. But like I say, I haven't really here in the past 15 years or so haven't had that problem.
Well,
You know,
let's look at your toms there. You have a wrap on them now. Does that affect the resonance at all, or is it still pretty much?
I think it does.
Yeah,
I think, but I've read a lot of controversial comments about it. Some people say it's negligible, that you really can't hear it.
right.
But when I originally took the wrap off these drums and did a hand rub on them, I could tell the difference.
Yeah,
But I don't know. Maybe it was a period of time that I went through that I really learned how to tune the drums or something. I don't know. To the pitch of the shells.
right,
I do know that tuning the drums to the pitch of the shell makes it come alive.
right.
And so I don't know. I don't think that wraps on a drum are really killing it. But if you look at okay, you've got like on this 6 layers of wood. Now, if you compare that with an acoustic guitar, if you wrap a blanket around that acoustic guitar and strum the strings, it's gonna be pretty dead sounding. It's not gonna carry on. But you pull
Right,
that blanket off, and actually you put that guitar on a mount and sit there and strum it, it just rings all day long.
right.
That's because all that wood is resonating
That's
with
right.
with the chords of the guitar. So so I mean you can look at it in that sense, But I think in today's society, the way things are going with modern technology and everything, I really do believe that a lot of the guys that are talking about it's negligible, it's pretty much true. Because when you throw mics on the drum, number one, I I think the working mics that should be happening on the drum set are the overheads and the
Yeah.
kick drum. Those are the only three mics you really need to worry about. The
Right.
rest just add a little bit of flavor.
Right. So what about the we'll talk a little bit about the snares real quick. What about the difference between the metal snare and the wood snare?
Well, metal snare, okay, you want that sound that John Bonham gets, that ringing, Foo Fighters, uh, Chad Smith, for example.
Yeah.
And a lot of it too is how you hit the drum.
Yeah.
You can get a maple shell to ring, but it has a woody ring. It's got that. It, it doesn't clang. It rings, but it doesn't clang.
Right. Right.
You can listen to Bonham's snare, and I love the way he's got it tuned. And it's wide open. There's no muffling on it.
Yeah.
It's that baby, and it talks to you.
Right.
And the bigger thing is, even with snares, you've got to bring your heads into pitch with the shell of the drum. Once you hear that and you've tuned that snare enough, you automatically go there. It's like muscle memory.
Right.
You get to that point, and that's where you're going to dial it in.
Yeah.
And the head on a snare is the most important factor. A lot of people overlook that.
Yeah.
Uh, you can overchoke a bottom head. I've
Yeah.
seen people 32 and 40 strand strainers and talking about how the number of wires that go across. And these strainers are this wide going across the bottom of the head. And I'm sorry, you put that much metal in contact with the bottom of the head, you're basically like laying your hand on it.
Yeah. So what do you have on yours?
Plenty strain.
Okay. So they make some too that are like there's two kinds that lay on them, right? Like you have some that that kind of lay flatter than others and some that are curved. Is that right? With the
Well,
strands?
no, what you got is it's just like with this. What these do is your bearing edge where the strainers come across
Yeah.
right here,
Hmm.
are dipped. It's dipped to allow the snare. It's called a snare bed.
Right.
Dipped to allow this. This is not actually touching the head.
Right.
The wires are touching the head back here, but anything forward of that is not touching the head on both sides. And that also encompasses the fact of how wide of a strainer you can put on here is how wide that bed is.
Now
Now,
I've seen some that like see yours go straight across where the wires come through, and then I've seen some that curve. Is there a difference there?
I haven't used anything like that. I just think of this people that are getting fancy with their end plates, you know.
Well, the theory was that it kept the snares the same if you hit it hard or soft or something to that effect. I don't know.
Well, there are now Pure Sound and I forget the name of the other company. Um, they're trying to think of the name of the other company. I used them when I was in Nashville. You had strainers that looked just like this, only the center wires, the center 8 wires,
Hmm.
were on a different little rider that you actually had like a little L thing that had a screw on it.
Hmm.
I could loosen those center wires up or tighten them up and still leave these outside wires the same. I could
Wow,
literally drop that whole center out and just use the outside wires,
that's crazy.
you know.
You
It's
could actually make
sound.
your
Yeah,
snare sound a little different, huh?
it's all about the sound you're going for. Now, the whole time I was with Rick Stanley, I was only using a 12 strand strainer. I
Yeah.
took a 20 strand uh, strainer and I cut those wires out
Wow.
and down to 12. It was only about that wide that went across. because at the time that's what country music wanted, was that big old bassy, big sounding snare drum.
Right.
They didn't have a lot.
Now this one here is a lot smaller. It's a, would you call that more of like a piccolo?
More like a piccolo. This is 3.5 inch free floater pearl.
Mhm.
And if you look at this strainer, see, it actually extends beyond the shell on
Right.
both sides.
Yeah.
Same thing. There's snare beds here. But if you want to keep this at the what they intended the snare to do, then you continue. You can put other strainers on here,
Yeah.
but you put this strainer on here, and it's just wire all the way across. There's no end plate touching the head anywhere or
Right.
involved on the inner surface of the head.
Yeah.
And this is a really sensitive, and from what I hear, I mean, I have yet to be able to use this one live, but I do know that you can get a real fat sound out of this thing. I'm
Yeah.
talking big and fat.
Yeah.
You got smaller shells, you can get bigger sounds out of them.
Right.
Still ain't figured that one out, but
Yeah.
pretty much runs the course.
So
But this shell here literally has no holes in it. If I was to take its top head off, the bottom head stays on,
Mhm.
and I can shell. And if I have another shell, like a brass shell, I can put it in here and put the top head back on.
Hmm.
And I ain't bottom head.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's like changing bodies on the guitar, only
Yeah.
you stay the same with the bridge and the neck.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's see.
Yeah. Right. Michael Rutherford might have one like that. Well, I guess basically it just depends on what you're looking for as to what kind of set you want, what materials, how thick you want it. You know, I mean, it's a lot more into it than just getting a drum set and playing it.
Well,
Yeah.
reporting wise, it seems that in years past, the big thing has been going for the maple
Yeah.
shell. But the thing is now the birch shells are really taking over the market.
Yeah.
A lot of people are wanting that birch in the studio because it accentuates the high end and the low end, and it kind of dips in the middle, which gives you that old EQ setting that everybody used to go for on the stereo.
Right.
Make it, you know,
Yeah.
well, that's what it does. It makes it smile, and
You mean
really
like that?
with it.
You mean like that back there on my bass head?
There you go.
Let me
But
turn.
yeah,
That's
but
my secret. Let me turn that back.
but the thing is with the birch shells, if you're playing clubs, they sound great, Mike, but if you're playing clubs that are smaller, you don't mic anything, the birch shells are going to put you out front.
Yeah.
Still going to be heard.
Yeah.
You have a mic on it. I mean, you can have a 410 Music Man stuck in your ear, and you're still going to make people hear your drums, even though you're going deaf.
Right. Right. Yeah. Everybody's got to turn up for you. So.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I guess it's about all we can really go into right now. I mean, we can go into snares later even, but I mean, I just thought it was pretty fascinating on the different grains and the way that the direction of the grain. I had no idea, so it was interesting to me. So I hope everybody out there finds this a little interesting, and we'll get Mike into more of maybe teaching us how to tune them later on in another episode, what the best way to tune a drum is. Um, there's a lot of stuff out there and everybody's different. So, I mean, that's one thing I need to do is tune my drums. So I'm going to be looking forward to that episode. But yeah, and we'll go into more other stuff too. There's just so much involved in a drum set that just talk about it all, we could be here for hours. So, but that's a little information that I thought was cool that we could talk about, just the shells themselves and the different materials and,
Yep.
The sounds and stuff. And since we have a pro here, we can ask him questions like bearing edges and things like that, which is stuff that, a lot of people don't know about. They buy a drum set, they play it, and they don't really dig into it that much. So hopefully we can start breaking down some of this stuff. So
Well, I do know that when I first started playing drums and was taking taking music in school, nobody ever talked about the bearing edges of the drums.
Right.
Didn't know. I didn't care. I pull the drum heads off. I throw the damn shell on the ground, and I put the top head on there and stand on it, trying to break the glue joint. So I never even gave it second thought about what I was doing to the bearing edge on the ground.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, watching the factories go through that and the way they keep the bearing edge mostly tight lipped because that's their little secrets and stuff. So I figured it had to have a big impact on the sound. So,
Well, one thing you can do if you're ever looking at customizing the drum set, or you want to have a drum built, whatever, you go to Keller, you go to Drum Factory Direct or whatever, and you tell them, I want a birch shell, I want a maple shell, I want 30, 45-degree bearing edges, 45 inside, 30 outside, or I want double 60-degree bearing edges,
mhm,
or I want you to cut the drum for pearl.
yeah.
Do it. You
Right.
don't even tell them what the angles are. You just say, I want a 14 by 14 floor tom shell cut to the pearl standards.
Right.
Put on a vision or to put on a master class or whatever,
Yeah.
they'll cut them.
Wow.
Tell you
cool.
what, they'll cut them.
Yeah.
So it's just, there's so many assets out there, and it's just, research and asking questions. There's so
Right.
many drums out there. You can hop on there and ask questions and read questions or just follow the forum.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to do some of this, tools of the trade thing too. And you brought it up talking about wanting to do that. And I thought it was a good idea because I've always got questions about stuff and then I can go research it and we can talk about it and it might help out somebody else too, who might have the questions that we have, what's the difference between this and that and who knows, So, well, I mean, I guess we can wrap it up and then we'll get on this topic again another day and we'll talk about something else, So,
Anybody's got any feedback or anything you want to throw in here? Any knowledge? Because believe me, I'm searching every day to find out a little bit more about what I'm doing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All you
Sharon.
drummers out there, drop a line and let us know what you're doing to your drums. And anybody that's got any questions, I'm sure Michael definitely respond back to you. If you got any direct questions to him that you might want to know, he'll be glad to get back with you. I'll try to answer them, but more than likely, when it comes to drums, you're gonna have to ask Mike. So
String instruments, there's the guy I talked to right there. The guy sitting next to me there. No, the other direction. There he is. There.
that way.
But yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, just drop us a line.
Yep.
If you have something that you want to find out about, maybe we don't know the answer, but drop us a line, drop us a question. I'm more than happy to dig into stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love dealing with sound equipment and stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty good at research, so we can find out stuff for you.
And that's not a big deal.
In fact, make it a challenge for us and try to stump us on something that we can't find out.
Or tell us how ignorant we are.
That too. There is a little caveat that we have on every one of our videos is that it is our opinion and we're not the smartest people in the world. And sometimes we don't know what we're talking about. So don't take everything to heart. This is all basically what we think about certain things. So, it's not the standard, it's not the music standard. It's what we think. So anyway, until next time, you guys stay safe out there.
Rock and roll. Listen to the music.